Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Hello everyone, Carrie here with Unicorn Company, and today we are talking about the second Clan Force Pack in the Mercenaries Kickstarter, and arguably one of my favorite Force Packs, the Clan Cavalry Star, which features 5 classics: the Locust IIC, Jenner IIC, Griffin IIC, Hawk IIC, and Black Python or White Raven, depending on what era you're in. Before we get stuck in though, I want to remind you to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and if you want to support the channel directly, you can at our Patreon at patreon.com/unicorncompany. Now, on to the show. The Clan Cavalry Star is arguably a force pack with some of the most iconic Clan second line mechs in existence. With 4 2C models and a fearsome second line machine, this force pack brings a fast and surprisingly hard-hitting combination of mechs to the table, and brings a lot of nostalgia from the first time I saw the color panels when I first opened Technical Readout 3055 and saw the incredible anime-inspired art inside. Though arguably, mechs don't move like anime mecha, but that's a discussion for another day. So let's take a ride down memory lane as I talk about each of these minis, and might even delve into some thoughts on their evolution to what we have now. The first of these that I'll be covering is the Locust IIC. This mech is one of the most interesting interpretations of the Locust, as the clans took the design and made it their own. Taking a look at the new mini, the mech is absolutely beautiful, and given that it has a laser barrel along the center line over the top of the mech, I would definitely think that this is a mech that will be finding its way into Unicorn Company. Starting at the front of the mini and leaning it slightly forward, you can see very light mold lines along the top of the mech's arms. These look pretty easy to clean up. In the front of the arms, where there are 4 holes each, I'm guessing for SRMs or for small lasers, I can't recall, the definition seems to be a bit soft, but the details are there. Getting to the legs, they have super light mold lines along the center line of the front, and once again, are easily removable. Going to the mech side, left side that is, there's a very slight mold line along the outer edge of the left arm, which is hidden in a corner and more feelable than visible, and once again easily cleaned. From the rear, the only complaint I would have is that it appears that the details on the back of the arm seem to be soft, for a lack of a better description. The mech's right side is pretty much the same as the left, with nothing visible and a similar mold line on the outside of the right arm at the front. Overall, I feel like this is a really good representation of the Locust IIC and is leagues above the Project Phoenix version, which was a good attempt, but she's got some thick legs on her. Not that being thick is a bad thing, but first, for a fast mover, they just look a bit too much in comparison to the other light, fast-moving mechs that are out there. Now, taking a look at the Alpha Strike cards, we have the Locust IIC and Locust IIC-10. The Locust IIC is a battle mech size 1 with a TMM of 3 and movement of 16 inches. It's a striker and comes in at a well-earned 42 points. It gets this value from its hefty damage capabilities, with the ability to do 5 damage at short and medium ranges with no long or overheat value. The Locust IIC has 3 armor and 2 structure, making it capable of tanking 2 arrow 4 hits and still having 1 structure left. This is made even better with its special of energy, making it immune to an ammo explosion and also making it one of the few clan light mechs which can actually take advantage of this ability. The next version of the Locust IIC we have is the 10, and this one is almost identical, with all of its stats identical to the standard Locust IIC, with the only difference being that in addition to the energy special ability, it also has the reflective armor special ability, making it even more resilient and just a bit harder to take down. Honestly, if I had to pick between the 2 mechs, I'm definitely taking the 10, as it has just a bit more survivability against standard attacks, unless of course your opponent has the re-engineered laser ability. The next mech we'll be looking at in this force pack is the Jenner IIC. The original Jenner 2C art is some of the most dramatically posed mech art that exists, with a missile coming straight at you from its launcher. The mech did have a redesign in Project Phoenix, and I have to say it definitely wasn't a flattering look, as it pretty much erased much of what made it feel like a design derived from the Jenner. The Jenner 2C is also unique in that the first phase of 2C mechs, it was the only one that wasn't a Starlink design. This remained a mystery in the game and the universe until much later, when we got an explanation that the Dragoons sent some to the homeworlds before they took on the mission of preparing the inner sphere for the inevitable clan invasion. And the Nova Cats, their weird and wonderful selves, fell in love with the design and decided to give it the $6 million man treatment. With the mini history lesson over, let's take a look at the mini for the Jenner 2C. First of all, just looking at the mech, the updated look totally captures the spirit of the TRO 3055 Jenner 2C. From the front, all of the details are very crisp, with the only noticeable mold lines being at the top of the mech's arms. The only exception to this is that there is a clip point at the top of each leg, which is visible from the front. They look like they might be a bit of a bear to remove, given their awkward position in relation to everything else on the mech. Going around to the sides and rear, I have to say that the mech is really clean, with a single blemish visible on the back of the left leg near the top. Otherwise, there really isn't anything that stands out to me. This is once again a beautiful model, and I think Catalyst has done a wonderful job in updating the design, as well as bringing it to life in miniature form. Now, looking at the design in Alpha Strike, we have the Jenner 2C. The Jenner 2C is a battle mech, size 1 with a TMM of 3 and moves 18 inches with a 14-inch jump capability. It is a striker and comes in at 29 points. The mech is capable of doing 3 damage at short and medium ranges with no long-range capabilities and doesn't have an overheat value. For armor and structure, it has 2 of each and special abilities of Case and SRM 220. The other side of the card is the Jenner 2C5. This variant of the Jenner is a battle mech, size 1 with a TMM of 3 and a movement of 18 and jump of 14 once again. It is a striker and comes in at 38 points. This version of the Jenner 2C hits a bit harder with a short and medium damage value of 4 with no long range, but is capable of overheating it for 1, allowing it to hit as hard as some medium and heavy mechs. The Jenner 2C has armor and structure of 2 each, well, 2C5 has armor and structure of 2 each with specials of Case, Light Probe, and Recon, giving it some toolbox capabilities at finding hidden units. The points jump between the two is a bit drastic and mostly comes from the jump in damage capability, though with the ability to spike up to 5 damage and use jumping movement to go defensive, it is possibly worth it. Now that we've looked at all the lights in the force pack, let's take a look at the 2 medium mechs, the Shadow Hawk 2C and Griffin IIC. We look first at the Shadow Hawk 2C. In the original art for this mech, it had a beefy feel and was also done in a very odd perspective, making it look like it had a broken right leg. Of course, the mini was a bit more forgiving and practical, though I have to say that the pose seems a bit static. When the Shadowhawk 2C got the Project Phoenix treatment, it wasn't very kind to the mech. The Project Phoenix one was sort of Popeye-esque, and the configuration that was chosen also didn't feel a lot like the original in its look. Finally, we got this beautiful plastic mini that we have now, though. And once again, Catalyst Game Labs has knocked it out of the park with the look of the mech. Starting at the front, the mech looks very good and holds detail well, though the mech's right leg seems to have some weird color variance on the calf, but it isn't anything that actually affects the quality. Looking slightly from the top, the clip points for the arms are directly at the top of the shoulders. While I prefer them to just be hidden away, this actually should work pretty well as it is on a flat surface, so they'll be easy to remove. Going around the mech, there is a small mold line on the rear of the right arm just below the pauldron. And from the mech's right side, I can see a clip point on the side of the backpack, as well as a mold line on the side of the right, I guess we'll call it breast. I think that's the right description. Personally, just looking at the mech, it has a nice beefy feel for a medium, though I kind of wish it had a bit of a more dynamic pose to evoke the original 3055 art. Maybe just not as dramatically. Looking at the Alpha Strike cards, we get a couple interesting variants of the mech. The first that we get is the standard Shadow Hawk IIC. This model is a battle mech, size 2, with a TMM of 2 and capable of moving up to 12 inches, with the ability to jump. It is a striker and comes in at a pretty reasonable cost of 37 points. This gets you the ability to do 4 damage at short and medium ranges without a long range damage value, and an overheat of 1. For protection, it has 5 armor and 4 structure with the lone special of case. This variant of the mech is good and a strong trooper. It isn't going to be the MVP of your force, but it also isn't going to be a unit that is underwhelming. The other model of the Shadowhawk 2C that we have is the 11. You have your basics. It's a battle mech size 2, has a TMM of 2 with a movement of 12 jump. It's a striker that comes in at 36 points. The 11 has a damage value of 3 at short and medium ranges with an overheat of 2 and no long range damage capabilities. The 11 has 6 armor and 4 structure with specials of case and crit resistant. This is more of an attrition version of the mech and with less firepower and a bit more armor for that damage resistance. I know that some would prefer that newer version. To be fair, though, I would definitely lean towards the standard model in this case. Now, let's get into the Griffin IIC, which is the unseen mech that never was. I'm sure you're wondering what I mean by that. Well, this is the original art for the mech, and it's different. A very interesting look, if I say so myself, with shoulder pads that can only be appreciated in 90s fashion. Now, the interesting part here is that the whole issue with Harmony Gold happened before they ever released a miniature. And when it comes to the 2C mechs, it is a whole story of its own, as those were designed by a company called Victor Musical Industries. But to be safe, all outside art was pulled, so we never got to see the Griffin IIC in all its wide-shouldered glory. Of course, when it was redesigned in Project Phoenix, the shoulders were kept, giving it a very unique look, but one that, like many of the Project Phoenix designs, felt alien to the universe it was meant for. Now, though, we can take a look at what Catalyst has done with this mech. The Griffin IIC that we got feels much more like it belongs in the BattleTech universe, with the wide shoulders gone, replaced with a silhouette that is more reminiscent of its inner sphere cousin. The model itself is very well detailed, and of course there are mold lines to be contended with. In this mech's case, they're primarily on the center line of the legs down the front of each. Going around the miniature, there isn't much in the way of mold lines, as they have been hidden pretty well for the most part. The legs do have clip points on the top, but otherwise the miniature is really clean, and the mold lines and clip points should be easy to remove with sanding sticks or a sharp hobby knife. Overall, like I said, I think Catalyst has done a wonderful job of reinterpreting this design so that it doesn't look like a fashion statement from 1995. Now, looking at the Alpha Strike cards for the Griffin IIC, we first have, well, the Griffin IIC. It's a battle mech, size 2, with TMM of 2 and moves 12 inches and can jump. It is a missile boat with a point value of 31 points. The Griffin IIC can do 3 damage at short and medium ranges and 2 at long, and it doesn't have an overheat value. For protection, it has 4 armor and 3 structure, with specials of case, indirect fire 1, and LRM 111. And like the Shadowhawk 2C, it fits nicely into the battlefield role of being a trooper. Reliable, but not usually the MVP on the battlefield. The Griffin IIC-9 is the other variant of the mech that we get, and, well, it's a mech. It's a battle mech size 2 with a TMM of 2 and movement of 12 jump. It's also a striker and has point value of 26. It has an underwhelming 2 damage at short and medium range with 1 at long, and it doesn't have an overheat value. It has an armor of 4 with structure of 3. For special abilities, the Griffin IIC-9 has case and indirect fire 1. Now, personally, I'm not a big fan of either of these variants of the Griffin IIC, and if I had to pick one, I would likely pick the original Griffin IIC. Now, if you wanted my opinion, I would say the Griffin IIC-7 would be a better representation of the evolution of the design as it advanced into the Clan era. But I'm not an employee of Catalyst, so I don't really have much say in what variants get put in each force pack. Finally, we have the last of the mechs in this force pack, and that would be the Black Python or White Raven, depending on when you are talking about the mech. Though, to be fair, the White Raven is something of a full-on redesign of the Black Python. This is also one of the unseen mechs with an interesting history. First of all, until we get to the Alpha Strike cards, I will simply be referring to the mech as the Black Python. Now, the Black Python has an interesting history and one that even I'm not fully sure of. The mech came out in TRO 3055 and was eventually declared as an unseen in 2004, a little over 20 years ago. And I'm not sure the reason why, as the mech was not drawn by Victor Musical Industries, but by Dana Knutson. To be fair, though, the loss of the original art for the mech never really felt like a loss. The Black Python is a 75-ton mech. It looks like a Champion's 2C in the torso, with bulky lower arms held on by thin, stick-like upper arms, and legs that would look more at home on a Locust than a heavy mech, especially one that is the same weight as the Mad Cat. Unfortunately, the miniature mirrored the art very, very well, and while that is something that is usually desirable, I am sure many wish that the sculptor took some liberties with the bulk of the legs on this mech. It did receive a Project Phoenix update, and when it did, a lot of the scale issues were resolved. On the flip side, though, the mech was also very flat in its appearance. So, in this force pack, Catalyst finally gives us a Black Python that both feels correct in the way its limbs are scaled in relation to its body and weight, as well as a miniature that captures the feel of the original Black Python, with curvy, almost aircraft-like features to the body. Looking at the mech from the front, there are minor mold lines on the legs near the top, and also on the lower arms, facing inward towards the body of the mech. The top of the mech itself looks to be very clean and detailed from the sides. There is a mold line that runs along the corner of the torso as it runs forward, and it's pretty well hidden for the most part, only being really visible as it transitions from the rear of the mech's torso to the front, directly in front of where the arms are mounted on the mech. The ends of the lower arms do have faintly visible mold lines, as well as on the upper section of the legs. Overall, the miniature is super well done and finally gives us a good-looking, well-proportioned iteration of the Black Python. And I just want to say thank you to whoever did the redesign of this mech for it. Now, we can take a look at the Alpha Strike cards. The first of which is the Black Python, which is a battle mech size 3 with a TMM of 2 and movement of 10 jump. The mech is a skirmisher and comes in at 46 points. The Black Python does 5 damage at short, 4 at medium, and 3 at long with an overheat value of 2. It has 7 armor and 4 structure with the special ability of case. The other side of the card features the White Raven. This mech shares much in common with the Black Python. It's a battle mech size 3 with a TMM of 2 and a movement of 10 jump. It is also a skirmisher and comes in at a hefty 56 points. The mech does a more consistent and robust amount of damage with 6 at short and medium range and 3 at long, and has an overheat value of 1. The White Raven has 8 armor and 4 structure, and the specials of case and crit resistant, making this version or redesign of the mech a bit more resilient and capable of doing damage. For me, the choice would be evident here, and I would definitely go with the White Raven if I had to pick between these two mechs. Now, I know some of you are wondering, where can I get this? Well, it's not for sale yet, unless your store bought the Kickstarter, in which case they might have some in stock. But it officially goes on sale. Well, I don't actually have an official street date for this one. But once it is on sale, Fortress Miniatures and Games will be selling it for $26.24 on their website. And I would highly recommend Fortress for this force pack once it is out, and also for any of your BattleTech needs, as they carry a wide range of products for just about anything you need for your BattleTech games, including mats, terrain, rulebooks, and miniatures. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you for watching the whole way through the video. I also want to thank all of my patrons, including my newest patrons, K Horse and Housemaster Podang. I will get you into the end credits rotation as soon as I can. I also wanted to remind everyone before I go that Western Assault at Strategicon Orcon in this February is just a little under a month away, and we still have slots open. I will have links to the rules, scenarios, and signups, as well as a link to Strategicon itself in the description below. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, this is Carrie, signing off. I want to thank all of our patrons and sponsors. Starting off, we have at the rank of Captain, Sarah. Then we have our Mercenary Review Bonding Commission representative, also known as our sponsor, Fortress Miniatures and Games. We then have our lieutenants, Boy in a Box, Haley, and Nathan. Our sergeants, Blind Zen Archer, Gus, Faz, and Steven. And let's not forget our cadets, NB Kaiju, Jamie, and Scott. Thank all of you for supporting the podcast and the channel. And if you would like to support us, and you can go to patreon.com/unicorncompany, where we have a number of tiers. One might just fit you. So thank you all very much, and have a good day.